Welcome everyone. My name is Jan Kopřiva and today we're going to look at TriOp, a tool I wrote which enables you to quickly gather information about the number of IP addresses which Shodan sees, which satisfy different queries which you can submit to it in bulk. This tool can be quite useful to security researchers as well as to security teams, since it enables you to quickly gather information about the number of vulnerable systems which Shodan sees in your IP ranges, as well as, for example, the number of systems with open port 80 around the world in different countries. TriOp is a Python tool, and all it requires to run is Python 3 along with the Shodan Python library, which you can install using pip. Now let's jump right in and take a look at how it works and what it actually does. If you run TriOp with the H option, you will get the help information for it. What's most important for us is that TriOp can be used with basic searches from the command line or searches from a search file. If you want to use it from the command line, all you have to do is set the search using the lower s parameter. But that's not all. You also need, in order to use the Shodan API, a key. You can access your API key or reset your API key if you feel you need to in your account options in Shodan. Now, you don't need a paid account in order to use the Shodan API. A free account is completely sufficient for use with TriOp. So if you want to use TriOp, all you have to do, besides downloading it and installing the Shodan library, is to go on Shodan and do a free registration and you're good to go. You obviously need to get your API key, and once you have it, you can input your API key with the -k parameter. Now if I run it, TriOp will let me know about the result for my query. In this instance, since I only asked for one, it will give me the relevant count. You can input multiple queries, they just have to be comma separated. So if I were to, for example, ask for the HTTP and HTTPS ports, TriOp would get me information about both of these. Now there is a delay if you want to get information about multiple different queries. That's because Shodan API access is limited to one query per second. In order for us not to have to input our API key to every query we run or to every command we run using TriOp, you can use the --save_key parameter. If you do so, TriOp will take your key and save it into a plain text file in the same folder from which it is run. Now, since the file is plain text, obviously anyone with access to that folder can now steal your API key, so never use this in shared computer environments. But if you save the key, you can then run any search without the k parameter. Besides running queries submitted through command line, TriOp can run queries from a file. I have created a file here which is called ports. Let's type it out quickly. You can see it has the same set of queries which we just submitted to TriOp through command line. Now, if we want to do the same using our file, all we have to do is use the uppercase S and the name of the file, in this case, ports.txt. Since TriOp doesn't display the results of queries if these queries are submitted through a file, we also need to add the -v to set it for verbose mode. Now we can see that it indeed does the same stuff. So it asks for port 80 and port 443, or rather the number of IPs with these ports open. This is not all it can do in terms of files. or in terms of parameters. We can use our lowercase s, and I will just use one of these queries, along with -c for country. After lowercase c, you may append a comma-separated list of country codes for all countries for which you wish to see the results. So in this case, if I wanted to see results for Czech Republic, which is CZ, I wanted to see German results, which is DE, and US results, which would be US, I would input it like this. And TriOp would then combine my search queries and the list of countries and give me the results for each of these combinations. So if you wanted to see how many computers around the world have the port 80 open to the internet, all you would have to do is input here the list of all the countries you wish to see. But that would obviously not be too user-friendly. So the same way we can input our searches with the uppercase S, we can input a file with a list of countries, one country per line, to TriOp using the uppercase C. So if we just modify our search from before with the uppercase S by appending uppercase C and then the list of countries, which I have in countries.txt, we can see what it will do. It will give us information about both ports in Czech Republic, CZ, both ports for Slovak Republic, SK, and both ports for US, and both ports for Germany, since these are the 4 countries which I have actually input into the countries file. This can definitely save you some time, but it wouldn't be of much use if you couldn't save the results. Now you can save results from the basic command line search quite easily. If I want, for example, to see all the computers with open port 25, all I have to do is input -o and the name of the file where I want to save the result. The results are saved in a CSV format. You can obviously name it whatever you like, but I will name it out CSV. If we type it out, we can see that TriOp has added for us the first line with the date on which the search was run. This is because we can then use the same file as an input file and add to it results for additional dates. So if you wanted to, for example, look at your own country or specific network or what have you, the whole world, and you were interested in how the numbers change for your queries from day to day or from week to week, all you have to do is rerun the same search using the file as an input, and then TriOp would append the date on which these searches were run. In this case, it obviously doesn't make much of a sense, but if I were to actually take the out.csv as an input file, I can append to it another result for that search, or for all the searches which are there. Now in this case we only have port 25 in it. If we had multiple queries, the results would be added for multiple queries. But in this case, if I use it as an input and use the append parameter, then TriOp will take the searches, the queries which are inside the file specified, and then append to them another result during the date on which it is run. So in this case, if we type it out again, you can see that we have once again the same date, obviously, since I have run it just now, and additional result for that query. Now this may not look like much, but if you run the same set of queries each day for a month or for a year, you can look at incredibly interesting trends. which you can discover just using Shodan for basically free if you use the free account. So it can be quite interesting. Now, since if you're doing any more sophisticated research, you would probably like to have your information saved for specific countries into different files, this is something which TriOp also supports. All you have to do in such instance is just add to the O option for output file dash dash country underscore names. If you use this operator, this parameter, what TriOp will do is take the name for the output and append after the name the country code for which it is saving data. So if we were to run this, it will once again go over all of the queries which I ran before, and now it will save the results into files with this sort of name. So as you can see, we now have different files or differently named files for each of the countries for which we ran our searches. If I type one out, you can see that it indeed contains the query and after it the result. You may now ask, all right, I have my files which I have used for some time, and I have data for not just 2 different iterations as we have here, but for the last 6 months. What if I want to append additional searches to my file in order for them to be run each day again and again for the foreseeable future? Can I do that? Well, yes, TriOp enables you to do this. It's quite easy. All you have to do is supply it with the list of additional searches. In this case, I will have to create such a list. The searches have to be one per line. So in this instance, I might be interested, for example, in data for port 22 and port 25. And all I need to do now is to supply TriOp with the search file which I want to use. In this case, it will be out.csv. And I need to tell it that I don't want TriOp to submit these searches to Shodan, but to append to them additional searches. I can do this using -m, which enables me to switch modes. The mode for appending additional searches to search file is named add. And I need to input the list of additional searches, which is done using -I for input file. In this case, it's called searches.txt. If I run it, TriOp will hopefully do so. If I now type it out, you can see that it indeed appended the searches which I wanted. In this case, it doesn't make much sense since in the original I already have port 25, but the principle should be obvious. Now, if I just ran it with A, so it will once again take all the searches which it finds there and search for them again, give me the result, the number of IP addresses which Shodan sees which specify these queries, and will append it to the results. We need to wait for a second. And now if I type it out again, we can see that it indeed appended the results for our newly added searches. Now, besides adding new searches to existing files, what we might wish to do is get information about the same search or similar search from multiple files. For example, if I were to monitor a situation in Czech Republic, Germany, Slovak Republic, and the US for the 2 ports, which I now have inside them, for longer periods of time, for example, a month or 6 months, I might wish to compare how the development for each port compares to the development in different countries. Now, we can do this using TriOp as well. Or rather, we can use TriOp in order to get us the information for these similar searches from all these files. We can do this quite easily. All we have to do is run it with the mode get. Now for the get mode, you need to specify the input file using either -s or -f, on which we will take a look right now. You need to specify the output file where the results are to be saved, and you need to specify what you're searching for, what TriOp is supposed to look for. Now, what does the -f do? -f is a file name load. If you use -f, you then need to specify a mask. And if you specify any text, what TriOp will do is it will load as inputs all files which have this mask inside their name. So if we use -f, I want to use out since all of my files have out in their name. And I'm interested in the search which has port 443, for example, and I want to save the results to data.csv. Oh, excuse me, we obviously need to specify not -out, but -o for the output. All right. Oh, and as we can see, it didn't just try to load our country files, but also our out.csv. But since that doesn't contain port 443, it skipped it. Now, if we type data.csv, we can see that all the results have indeed been parsed from the input files, and now we have them by date on which these searches were run in this aggregate file. Now, if you have files which are from earlier, for example, you already have data for searches from 6 months ago, and you've now added new search file, it doesn't matter, TriOp will parse it correctly, and based on the date which is on the first line, it will actually take the results and sort them in order for them to be set on the same date. Now, besides doing all of these things, what you might wish to do, for example, if you are part of an internal CSERT or SOC, is run a search for your own networks, for your own external IP ranges. Now, what we will use for this example would be the network 200.0.0.0/16. Shodan doesn't allow you to look up for bigger ranges than for /16, but for our example, this will be quite enough. Now, if we were to ask it just for the information about how many IPs are in this range, we can see that Shodan sees over 50,000 of these. But what we can also do is add --basic_search. In this instance, what TriOp will do is apply combination of the search we specify along with additional search parameters. If you run it, you will get information about the number of IPs which are in that range, number of different IPs which have the more common and interesting ports open in that range, and you will get information about number of IPs which have, for example, SSL, and what might be most important for you, the number of IPs which have some vulnerability detected by Shodan. We don't need to end here. What you might have already noticed is that TriOp has option for detection of vulnerabilities, the vuln search level parameter or option. In this instance, if you use the vuln search level option, you need to specify a numeric value from 0 to 3, which says to TriOp what vulnerabilities it should look for. Now, it doesn't make much sense to do this for smaller ranges, but you might, for example, wish to see how many systems are vulnerable to different CVEs, which Shodan can detect in different countries. So this might be of a good use in combination with a country search. In any case, if I want to do vulnerability search level 1, I run it, and TriOp will now go through the list of all vulnerabilities which have high severity and which Shodan is capable of detecting. Shodan can now detect approximately 2,500 of different vulnerabilities. I will try to update the tool when new vulnerabilities come out and when Shodan gets the option or gets the capability of detecting these vulnerabilities, so that if you use the vulnerability search in TriOp, you will always get all the information which Shodan is capable of giving us. In any case, for our search, I will stop it. We can see that in several instances we have some hits. We have 3 different IPs vulnerable to this high severity CVE from 2001, and that's about it. In any case, if we wanted to search for vulnerabilities, what we can do is use the option or the search filter vuln. In this instance, vulnerability which affects a high number of systems might be, for example, CVE 2019-0708, which is BlueKeep. And as you can see, we have 237,000 of these around the world. If I want it, I can append a dash uppercase C to it and use my countries list in order to get information for these countries for this vulnerability. So as you can see, this can be really quite powerful given how simple it is. It's definitely something which you can use if you work in a SOC or in a national level CSIRT to get information about your country. As you've seen, TriOp is not an especially sophisticated tool. We've seen basically all of its functions during the last couple of minutes. But if you use it with a list of relevant search parameters, it can give you quite interesting information. For example, I've been looking at different search parameters for different countries for about the last 18 months or so, and I've done the same thing for global information. And if you take a look at the different data I've gotten, you can definitely see interesting results. In fact, if you would like to see the results which I've gathered, you may do so at untrustednetwork.net. I will put a link in the description, but I have put there charts for different open ports during 2020, so you can see numbers for different open ports on the internet. They're quite interesting, especially when one considers the impact which COVID-19 had on work from home, which is somewhat visible, for example, in RDP, as we can see it now on our screens. If you would like to use TriOp, you may download it from my GitHub page. I will put a link in the description. And if you wish, modify it as you see fit. I've open sourced it under the GPL 3.0 license, so do with it basically as you please. Thank you very much for joining me, and let me know if you find TriOp useful or interesting.